got to do something with these backdrops. Because when you wear black, it looks like you have a floating head.
That's the point. I don't
Our
see
new one's
this one.
coming soon. There we go.
Ah, here we go.
All right, is it showing up there, D?
Hey, we're frozen. Ah, there we go.
All right, we are on officially.
Yes.
All right. Well, hi guys. Welcome to our Monday edition of. I don't even know what we call this anymore. It's just kind of an impromptu, inspiration. It's inspirational too, but it's informational. We wanted to put something together in regards to a lot of these new shooters out there, and we're getting a lot of questions coming in about different aspects of owning a firearm. So we thought we'd put together these little videos. I'm Eric, host of On Target. We have that here Saturdays live from LEPD in Columbus, Ohio. Dee's our training coordinator and does a lot of our coordination of training, our ordering, and all kinds of stuff. And so we thought we'd tackle the topic. And today we're getting questions on how do we safely secure our firearm at home, but have it right there readily available if we need it. And that's something we talk about all the time. I mean, there's a balance. You have to make sure that that firearm is not in your possession, that it is secured. It's your responsibility as a firearms owner to make sure it is secured if it's not immediately in your possession, but you also want it readily available in case in that time of need, and that's more than likely why you have a firearm itself. So we want to go over a couple of those tips today, some of the products out there that allow for that. And if you have any questions, certainly chime in on Facebook. Dee's watching that for us. And it doesn't have to be a question on the topic either. If there's something from last week's show, whatever, just yell and we can certainly answer that. So, Denise, one of the things that people ask all the time is, I have a firearm now, or maybe not someone who's had a lot of experience with it. I have it at home, and how can I keep this secured but yet readily available? A couple of different ways. Every firearm, every new firearm now comes with a lock of sorts. Either a cable lock, that's a very just simple keyed lock, or sometimes it comes with a trigger lock. But all of them come with it, and all used firearms are required to come with a lock as well. So if you're buying a used firearm from us or from any of the stores in town, there is going to be a lock in that box. If there's not, we certainly have them behind the counter to give to you. But every firearm now being sold through a store will come with some sort of locking mechanism. So none of us have an excuse anymore for not having that firearm secured, at least in the very simplest of terms. So let's talk about the easiest ones. A revolver, which a lot of people have been buying recently because they are simple to use and great for the first-time firearm owner. Revolver are probably one of the easiest ones to lock up and maintain safe and secure. If you open the cylinder up and have the empty chambers there, you can see where the cable locks simply can go through a cylinder, preventing it from closing all the way. And that in and of itself makes the gun inoperable. But a lot of you are probably asking, well, then how do I make that firearm feasible and ready to go if I need it? There's things called speed loaders that we sell, very common, been around for a long time. So if you were to keep your firearm in a locked position such like this, you can keep those speed loaders. It's the ammunition. It holds them all the rounds together. And immediately after you take off the cable lock, you simply go over top of the cylinders and it drops them all in at the same time, and you can have access to a firearm that's ready to go very, very quickly. At first glance, and we've done many stories with some of the local media, at first glance you would look at these locks and say, oh, they're cumbersome, or it's going to take a lot to get them to work at the in the time of need and everything. But realistically, they're very easy to work, and they just are very simple with pushing the end in. And let's see, make sure we have a key that fits it. So there, with a simple key, it comes out. So you can see that if this firearm was in a locked position, all it would take is inserting the key, turning it, it's out and it's ready. You can load it and be ready to go in merely seconds. It doesn't take much practice to really become proficient at that. What do you think of that, D?
It's a nice
That's
lock.
good. Nice lock. If you want to step up from that and you want the firearm more in a position to be loaded and ready to go but still secured, there is there's tons of different safes out there and different mechanisms you can purchase to lock the firearm in a loaded situation or in a loaded position. Probably the simplest are the ones such as this. We carry Liberty safes. They happen to be ones we've had the best luck with. Rarely send them back. Never have any issues with them. On the entry level part of their line are locks or safes with a lock on them. So again, it's a key to it. But once you open it up, you could have access then to a firearm that's in there that is loaded and ready to go. So that's one way to utilize the safe and have the firearm ready to go immediately when you open it. These are all able to be secured. You can either anchor this to a floor. A lot of them come with a cable lock that will go through the safe itself, and you can anchor it to someplace that allows it to be secured and not able to be walked off with in your home. If you step up a little bit from that, and this is the one I really like, you can see a little bit larger one here. This one is opened by a series of numbers that you program, and you can see that real quick it opens them up and it gives you access to the inner compartments. This can house several firearms. You can see how easily that goes in there. You can probably put 2 or 3 in there if you want, and it's simply just the keypad on top, and it pops it open. Again, very easy to secure. You can secure it to a floor. You can secure it to something that's not going anywhere in your house, and it gives it a safe, quick access to it.
What are the pros and cons to having? Because they have the fingerprint ones and the key code and everything.
Exactly. You know what? A good point. The one step up from this that we don't have here on the studio table today are the fingerprint ones. The fingerprint ones are nice because they allow you to put up to 15 fingerprints into the safe. So what you can do, we always recommend, is putting your right and left hand in, maybe putting a hand of your spouse in there, a combination like that, or a couple of different people that are in your house, and it allows you to then, via fingerprint, open the safe, much like we did with the push button. As you go up the continuum from a simple locked safe to the push button to the fingerprint safe, the price goes up. And when you think about it, though, it's this is something that is very important to do. So even if it is a couple $100, it's well worth the investment to get something that works. All of the ones that are electronic in nature, the push button or the fingerprint, have an override with a key. So if the battery goes bad or something to that nature, you can always use the key to open it up. They're really good, and in today's environment, there's so many choices. There's really no excuse not to have your firearm locked up in some fashion. The other one that you might see, the other type of lock that you might see, that comes with actually a lot of the firearms these days, are a trigger lock. Again, they work off of just a simple key, and they go around the trigger guard of any firearm. And pretty good as far as universal. There's really very few firearms that they won't work on, but they physically go through so you can't pull the trigger. The nice thing about these is that you can have this firearm in a position where it's not far from being ready to go, either with or without the magazine in there. And so in this case, simply unlocking this, pulling it apart, now you have a firearm that's ready to go immediately. So we're talking seconds. We did a test with one of the local stations recently, and you can, with a very little practice, you can have something set up like this and be in it within literally 10-15 seconds at the most. It's another good thing to talk about as well. The readiness of a semi-automatic. There's some things you can do in the meantime, even if you don't have a locking mechanism, or if you just want that extra layer of protection. Semi-autos are nice in the fact that the magazine is what gets loaded with the rounds. And as we talked about on prior podcasts, until that round is in the chamber, the firearm is really, there's nothing to it. It's just a piece of metal. So there are people who store the firearm in one location and store a loaded magazine in a different location, maybe locked up. But everyone knows then that it doesn't take much to be able to put the magazine in and have the firearm ready to go in a situation where you need it quickly. So there's a couple different ways you can do that to still maintain a safe environment at home. Any questions, Dee?
Nope, still good.
Another question that came up this week, and then actually before we go further on the locks, Dee, show a couple of the ones that we sell here in case you don't have one, or maybe you have a firearm that was purchased at a gun show and doesn't have a lock. There's certainly things you can do. You can buy aftermarket.
So you already talked about one of these, just another brand of the trigger locks. This one's by Remington. Super easy, like Eric was saying. And then this one is mainly for rifles. It's about 60 inches long.
So
you can wrap that through like an AR, through a shotgun. Same way, go through either the barrel, go through the chamber.
Right, and very inexpensive, relative to the cost of the firearms and so forth. One of the other questions we get is just mere storage. Do I need to do anything special on the storage of the firearm just to ensure that it's good and solid for years to come? If you store it properly and take care of the firearm, it will be passed down through generations. And we see that. We see that with used firearms that come in that are 100 years old that look like they just came out of the box yesterday. And part of the things you can do is keep a good layer of oil, fine oil on it. We sell it here, gun oil. And then Dee has here another product. If you don't have anything to put the firearm on, or in rather, just a simple gun sleeve. These have, I think, silicone infused, so they keep the moisture away. The moisture is really what the issue is with firearms, with the bluing and the metal. If you have it sitting in one place for a long time and the house is humid, or maybe you store your firearms in the basement or someplace where there is higher humidity than the rest of the house, it will over time absorb into the wood and to the metals, and unfortunately you'll get a firearm that starts to become rusted, and that's something you don't want to do. It will go towards the value of it, and also towards, sometimes in the extreme situations, it can go towards the functionality of it. We've had guns in here that have been so rusted that the gunsmith has really had to take it apart and soak it just to get it to work. So that's something you don't want to get into, especially if you're waiting, you have it there for that time of need, and when you go for it, it's not user friendly. So let's talk about, and Dee, you mentioned ARs. Many people have purchased ARs in these last couple months, had a lot of questions on keeping this ready and at your home, but yet secured. Being a little bit taller, you're out of the realm of the small safes. There are inexpensive safes that you can purchase at some of the big box stores that will secure rifles. They're not that, you can probably get them for $100 or $150. If you don't have that, or you don't have the space for that, these trigger locks that we've been mentioning, believe it or not, will work in the ARs as well. Simply going down through the magazine well, and you can lock that and have a secured firearm. The nice thing about the AR, or some of these rifles that have the detachable magazine, is that you can secure the weapon, but then also have a fully loaded magazine elsewhere, in your close proximity, but outside of the firearm, and simply, it doesn't take much to load this and have this ready to go very quickly. So there's all kinds of things you can do to keep it safe in your home, but if you have little ones around or people coming in your house that aren't familiar with firearms, you can certainly keep it, away from it and safe. Another question we've had last couple of weeks was, there are a lot of people bought shotguns in this last month. This just happens to be one with a short stock to it, but it's good for illustration purposes. Shotguns, too, allow you to have it in a different state that is very close to being ready to go, but still is, has a little bit of a safety features in there. Again, the trigger locks work on these. The cable locks work on these. So there's things you can do out of the box, and they all come with a lock, just like with the pistols. One of the nice things about the shotguns is they all have some type of a cross bolt safety, or a safety on top, some type of mechanism that you can, put it on safe if it's at home. Of course, that's not nearly enough if you have kids in the house. But one of the things that we do personally, and it's done even in the cruisers and most of the departments, is with a shotgun, and of course dummy rounds like we always use. With a shotgun, you can have rounds loaded in the magazine, and there's still nothing in the chamber. So if the trigger were to be pulled right now, it's not going to fire because there's nothing in the chamber. So there is you can keep it in this state as well, keep the safety on, and have the trigger lock in there. So then when you need it in that time of need or protect yourself and your family, once you remove the trigger lock, you simply can rack the slide and you're ready to go. So there's no need to load it at that point. You're just simply loading one into the chamber, taking the safety off, and it's ready to go. It doesn't take much practice. Big fan of the snap caps or the dummy rounds, but they're really, when you talk about firearms, it's a perishable skill. If you don't practice what you would do with you and your family at home, if someone were to break in, you're not going to be able to do it in the time of need. And that's the thing we're big about. Have the discussion with your family. If you've chosen to have a firearm in your house now, you need to have a discussion with the family and with the kids. Have the kids, don't make it the forbidden fruit. Let them respect it and see it, and there'll be a time and a place for them to go to the range or go outside and shoot it and learn the right way, because then they, like in our household, my son now is of age where he's a viable asset to protecting the family. So he has learned along the way, and now if someone were to come in our house that's not supposed to be there or something were to happen, I trust him as much as anyone else in helping protect the house and the family. Any questions there, Dee?
No questions.
Anything you're getting throughout the week on some of the new gun owners or
Cleaning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cleaning is something that it goes to the longevity of the firearm. You certainly don't have to clean your firearm every time you shoot it, but most people do. It's a good idea to get into. You want to take everything out of the mix, everything that is a variable. You want to make sure you've addressed it to have that firearm ready in the time of need. And certainly, you don't want to get lazy on the cleaning and have the time of need get up there and something happen with how the gun cycles or jams because it was dirty. Take that out of the mix. Clean it. Keep it clean. Keep a light coat of oil on it. Any of the guys here will help you with the products that you can pick out. There's certainly numerous products, and they're not expensive. You can get into some of the kits. I think our Hoppies kits are $10, $10 or $11.
Yeah.
So there's really no reason not to clean it, and any of the guys and girls here will help you and give you some advice on that.
And you don't need to take the whole gun completely apart in that regards. I mean, you don't have to take out the trigger and everything and every single tiny spring and pin in there. The nice field strip will go a long way.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I mean, field stripping it, which is taking the gun apart just down to the basic of parts, is all you need to do. You don't need to take the gun like a gunsmith would be down to every spring and so forth. And most of these firearms now are so easy to field strip, and it doesn't take much. Of course, I pick out the one with the magazine safety. The dirty one with the magazine safety. There we go. So, you can see it doesn't take much just to break it down. And from here, the spring comes out, the barrel comes out, and that's really all you need to address. I mean, addressing in here, addressing the barrel, and putting it all back together, it really doesn't take much time at all, and it's something you should do for the longevity of the firearm.
Don't completely drench your gun in oil.
That is
a big thing that we see in here.
That is true. At first you might think that the right thing to do is to really have a lot of oil in there, wear on some of the plastic parts there. And if you think about it, a lot of the oils that are out there will attract dust and grime, and so we'll get firearms here where people bring them in and say, hey, it's not cycling or there's some issue with it. And when the gunsmith pulls it apart, it just has so much oil caked in there, and that has attracted dust and dirt, and it's caused it to not work. So most manufacturers read the owner's manual. Most recommend a light coat of oil. A lot of them recommend it being even dry to a point.
Mm-hmm.
So I typically, spray mine down with oil, and then with an air hose or air compressor, blow it out so there's really just a film left on it.
When you buy range ammo, should you be aware of the grain that you're using
You know,
for shooting?
for most of the modern firearms, you are not going to have an issue with one grain over the other. So you take 9mm for example. The two common grains are 115 and 124 for range ammo. Most of the firearms out there are going to cycle either one without an issue. Where it starts to come into play is on maybe some of these smaller firearms that are more, can be more finicky on the ammunition. One might work better than the other, and you might get one manufacturer might work better than the other. We tell
Mm-hmm.
people all the time that they'll bring a firearm in for the gunsmith to look at and be having problems. And our first question is, have you tried different manufacturers of ammunition? Because believe it or not, even though they're all met to the SAMI specifications on the pressures, they can be a little bit different. And sometimes with some of these firearms, especially the smaller ones, the concealed carry ones, it can be a little bit finicky, and you need to find the 2 or 3 different types that work flawlessly in it, and stay away from the one that doesn't. It's just how it is. Walther PPKs were notorious for that. The other ones that we see that come to mind are the C camps.
Mm-hmm.
C camps are a phenomenal little pocket firearm, but they are known to only shoot hollow points.
Mm-hmm.
That they're made to only shoot hollow points, and even if you're at the range, and there's some that they don't do very well with. So that's okay. Don't get too discouraged if you find that your firearm doesn't like one make or manufacturer, and you can experiment a little bit with the grain weights, but don't get too hung up on that. It comes a little bit more into play when you're looking at defensive ammo, like 9mm right now. I know we have 115, 124, and 147 grain. It does make a difference, and you can start to hone in on the barrel size of your firearm, and then there's certain things that come into play. But on the range ammo, just as long as you get stick with the name brands, stick with the brass cased. I wouldn't recommend going to the steel cased ammo. It is cheaper, and sometimes it's, you look at it and you're like, oh, maybe I should buy the cheaper stuff, but it's not good long term for your firearm.
Right, right. I know this question hasn't popped up yet, but I'm sure some people that are new to guns are gonna wonder, what does grain mean, and is there a difference when you talk about plus P?
Right. So the grain weight is the actual weight of the bullet. So when you start to look into how the firearm cycles and the pressures on it, the grain weight can make a difference. And when you look at plus P is something that it's not in every caliber, but it's something that was done. I think it probably has roots in the law enforcement community, where it allowed you to shoot, let's say, for example, a 38 special. A normal 38 special might be rated at so many pounds per pressure. A plus P increases that. So on your side, there's more felt recoil, but you're getting more velocity out of that round, therefore translating to hopefully better velocities, more better knockdown power, and so there is an advantage to that. The other thing to consider, and this is probably getting too deep in the woods, is that when you look at defensive ammo, they're hollow points, and they're meant to open up. So the whole goal of a defensive hollow point ammunition is to transfer the energy of the round into the target that you're trying to stop the action of. And if some do better jobs than others in doing that. If you look at it at the extremes, and you can probably see, yeah, we'll hone in on the gel block there. I'm not sure if you can see it all that well on the camera. But this has happened to be a gel block test that we did here in the store. When you look at a full metal jacket round or a typical round that's not a hollow point, when you shoot at a target, there is a good chance or a higher chance that round is going to go completely through the target and not disperse the energy in the target as you would want. So, for instance, if you can see in this gel block, let's see if we can. There, I don't know if you can pick up on it on the camera. There's a faint line that goes the entire length of the gel block. That is the full metal jacket. It went through the gel block, and so it just goes to show you that it does not do a very good job at transferring the the velocities and the energy rather to the target. Contrary to that, the other rounds that are in there are all hollow points, and they do varying degrees of transferring that energy into it. The things that you need to consider is in a normal, shooting scenario, are you going to be shooting through barriers? Is it going to be in the wintertime where the bad guy has a leather jacket on? There's all things to consider. And one of the things, and we found this out kind of, I don't want to say the hard way, but we saw it firsthand here at the store, is some the rounds that are hollow point are meant to expand at certain velocities. If you put that round in a shorter barrel firearm, so for instance, in this case, let's talk about 45s. If a hollow point 45 is meant to expand out of a 4-inch barrel firearm because the velocities are such that it will meet that velocity, but now you put that into a barrel that's only 3-inch, you might not see that round expand when you need it. And we saw that here on the range. One of my off-duty weapons was a short barrel 45. I carried hollow points in it for years, didn't think anything of it. And when we did the gel block test, it went completely through the gel block, much like a full metal jacket would. And it was an eye-opener for all of us. And when we talked to the manufacturers and some of the experts in the industry on rounds and on ballistics and so forth, it became evident that the round just wasn't getting enough velocity out of that shorter barrel. So the shorter barrel, it doesn't allow it to go through the rifling and achieve the velocity. And so in order for me in that firearm to have a round that opened up, I had to go to plus Ps. And that's a perfect example where the plus Ps can open up and give you what they're supposed to do. The SIG 365, another perfect example, of very, very short barrel in that firearm. That round is not going to open up at the same level as it would in a full-size firearm. So you might consider the plus P round in some of the small guns.
Absolutely. It's a question. Oh, by the way, one person wants us to do a cleaning show next Monday.
Well, we should.
Yeah.
That might not be a bad one. Maybe we could even probably clear some of this stuff off and
I'll bring
do
all
a
my guns I have to clean. That'll be good.
There you go.
Yeah, you can clean them too. What's the proper transportation of firearms in a car from home to the range?
Home to the range. It's a question we get a lot of times. If you have your concealed carry, obviously you can have that on you. It can be loaded a pistol can be loaded in the car itself. For most people, what we say the easiest thing to do, especially if you're going to the range and you're going to be taking it unloaded, is to make sure that it is unloaded, secured in your trunk or out of your immediate compartment, and have the ammunition away from it. That's the easiest thing. In case if something were to happen, you were to get stopped, or maybe you were in an accident, it allows you to say, hey, look, it's in, I have a firearm in my trunk. It's unloaded. It's in a safe position, and you don't have to worry about it from there. The big thing is keeping it out of your immediate reach in your compartment, in the compartment of your vehicle, if you can.
For sure. Is there a now I've heard this, I don't know if this is 100% true. You can't have a rifle loaded in your
Correct.
car. That's right?
Correct.
And if you now ammo and
you can keep it separate. I mean, it's gone back and forth a little bit over the years, so I hate to say definitively. And we have Derek DeBross on with us sometimes on Saturday, and he keeps up on that, time to time because it changes. But for the most part, I mean, it's just good practice. Don't have it loaded in your vehicle. I think now you can have loaded magazines in there, but just certainly keep it outside of the firearm itself.
Right, and then it has to be a separate, right? So like, if you don't have your concealed carry, keep your arms distance. Is that
right?
Yeah.
Right. What else you got there?
Everyone's super excited about the cleaning show.
They are the D-cleaning show.
The D-cleaning show, D&E cleaning show.
Cleaning is a good thing. It is, we take it for granted because we do it so often around here, but it is a good. It's a good lesson to watch for and stuff.
Oh, here's a question that I have. So when you get and you do have your concealed carry, say that's in your car, do you need to tell the officer?
So here's the thing. That's a good question, D. friend, though, right?
Yes, not me.
Here's the deal, guys.
Safe driver.
By Ohio law, you still have to wear, have that firearm on you. I think. Okay, here we go. And we're back. Did you trip over the cord, D? So the question was, if you get pulled over and you have your CCW, should you tell the officer, even if it's not in your immediate possession? So I think you're using the example if it's in your trunk or whatever. And I think by law, at the moment, and I say at the moment because this has been debated and there's a chance this is going to change. I think at the moment you need to tell the officer if as soon as you make contact or he or she makes contact with you, you need to tell them that you're a concealed carry holder and where it's located on you. I don't think at the moment if you don't have it on you that you need to officially declare. But let me tell you why you should. As soon as the officer pulls the tag up on your vehicle, it comes back that the owner of that car has a concealed carry.
Mm-hmm.
It's the right thing to do. It's the most courteous thing to do. I'll tell you firsthand, the officers aren't concerned with legal concealed carry holders who have a firearm. It's not a concern. We're concerned with the people who have the firearm on them who don't have it on them legally. So simply out of courtesy say, "Hey officer, I have a concealed carry. I don't have it with me today, or I have a concealed carry and it's on my hip." Most of the time, as I tell people, when people do that, when I stop them, we end up having a dialogue alongside the road about what they're carrying, what kind of holster they have. So don't worry about that, and don't. I mean, it's the right thing to do because otherwise, if I walk up to a car and it says the person has a concealed carry and they don't mention anything about it, now I'm wondering, okay, are they looking to do harm or what? Why aren't they saying anything about it? And sometimes they just forget, or sometimes there's innocent reasons, but it's the right thing to do to say, hey, I have a concealed carry and I don't have it on me today. Just do that. It releases the tension and makes for a better interaction.
Absolutely. Good to know. I'll let my friends know.
You let your friends know? Okay. Anything else, Dee?
No questions. Everyone's super excited about the cleaning show, like I said.
Okay.
I'm excited to bring my guns in to clean.
All right. You bring them in to clean. We'll clear off a space here, and you can.
Is there certain ones I should bring? This one person said 9mm and AR-15.
Perfect.
It's okay. So I'll
Yep.
bring that.
Revolvers are super easy. It'll take us a second to talk about that, but we'll
Bring my shotgun.
next week it looks like we're going to talk about cleaning. So thanks for taking the time to watch, and certainly if you have questions throughout the week, we're always here. It's easy to get a hold of us. Sales@lepd.com is a great email for us. Give us a call. We're here all the time. And if you want to check out the latest inventory, it's on our website. If you click on lepd.com, top right corner says COVID update. If you go to that, we keep a running list of what is actually in inventory. We're having a lot of people now emailing us saying, hey, I see you have XYZ in inventory. Please set it aside. I'll be in tomorrow. That's perfect. We still have plenty of ammo. We're limiting the boxes to still a couple per person, per caliber, but we have plenty at the moment. So certainly stop by and check us out there. And we have a full range of accessories as well too. So stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll be back next week. And
one more question
yes,
before
ma'am.
we end the show. When a customer comes into the range, should the customer have the firearm in a case? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, please. Please.
Yes.
Please.
Yes,
have it in a case.
definitely. And that's simply just to show everyone else that it's here safely. Make sure it's unloaded in any case. We get people coming in and they'll say, hey, you're a gun store, so we assume we can just walk in with the gun out. And put yourself in our position sometimes. And a lot of it's innocent enough. If we see someone coming in the front door with a shotgun or with an AR, for a split second, we don't know the intentions of that person. And 99.9% of the time, it's it's just someone who doesn't have a case. We have cases here.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a case and you walk in, you see the sign that says please have your firearms cased, leave it in the vehicle. Come get a case from us. We'll let you borrow it when you're here. But certainly, yeah, just don't walk in with it uncased because it puts us in a tough spot there until we can determine what the scenario is.
Yeah, and if it's in a holster, if you have your concealed carry, you're perfectly fine. You don't need to unholster and ask us for a case. Just keep it in your holster. Now, if you are looking for a holster, we will ask you to hand over your firearm, and we will unload it. You don't have to unload it for us. In fact, it's better if we do it in case any accidental discharges happen.
Yep. So, and we want to, and it's letting us putting our hands on it and making it safe. And the same too, if you have walking in the store, that's fine as well. We just don't want it out and not in a holster, a case, or some type of covered environment and so forth. So,
cool.
What else do you have, Dee?
That is it. Appreciate everybody watching and tuning in, and join us next Monday for our cleaning show.
All right, next Monday for our cleaning show. Stay healthy and stay safe, and watch On Target Saturdays at noon right here. And why aren't you on the show on Saturdays, Dee?
Because I get Saturday off for once. My job.
All right, I think you should be here and participate in the Saturday show.
I don't think there's enough mics and seats. I think we're good.
There's plenty of mics.
No, there's none. It's okay.
All right, be safe, and we'll see you next week. Did that go in two different videos? It stayed on one?
Mm-hmm.